On to the flavor of the season, elections 2014. He's the second most followed politician on social media right after Narendra Modi. And yet Shashi Tharoor alleges that the orchestrated vicious campaign by paid BJP platoons on platforms like Twitter are making social media dilute its relevance and appeal. Tharoor also asserts that opinion polls are not tapping the traditional Congress voters and that the Modi wave is just a well-worked-out PR campaign. Suprashinit caught up with Tharoor to get his point of view on just that.
Why is it that social media or people on social media are so against the Congress and so pro Mr. Modi?
Because they're not people, they're BJP trolls, BJP vanguards, BJP platoons of people who are paid to sit there and do nothing but abuse the rest of us. I've seen the change, for example, in Twitter. Since I began 2009, the first couple of years, you basically spent your time engaging with real people. Yes, some of them were BJP sympathizers, right. Including the fellow who asked about cattle class was a BJP, right. Well-known BJP journalist. But the fact is that was all right. You knew some were there, some were not. But for the most part, these were regular folks like you and me. You might meet in a living room. Instead, you were meeting on social media. Today, I no longer enjoy opening up the notifications, as I call the mentions, in which I'm tagged, because 95% of them are just orchestrated abuse, nastiness and viciousness from the BJP's paid army of hacks. And it's a sad abuse of social media that dilutes its appeal and its effectiveness. And because it's so much more difficult to do it in quite that extreme way in Facebook, they haven't yet managed to reduce the appeal of Facebook to that point. But I think Twitter's growth in India is definitely being affected by the extent to which you have this complete takeover of the social media political space, maybe not the other spaces, but the political space by these paid hacks.
The question that I want to ask you is that social media has become very important as far as perception building is concerned, be it on Facebook, be it on Twitter. Why is it that the Congress party has not picked up a lesson from people like yourselves? Your party lagged in latching on to this bandwagon. Did you underestimate the power of social media at one extent?
Well, I didn't.
I mean your party.
I was one of the first on it, and I think initially there was a lot of interest. I remember when I first crossed 10,000 followers, a lot of very senior people said to me, 10,000 followers, my gosh, we'd love to have an audience of 10,000. How do you do this? Tell me. But of course, the extremely sort of, shall we say, overwhelmingly negative reaction by mainstream media to my reaching over their heads and reaching people directly led to a series of so-called controversies, all of which were totally artificial, but which immediately had the effect of frightening off the very people who had asked me how to get on Twitter, backed off and didn't go on Twitter. The Congress therefore took a little longer to recover from that, whereas the BJP was indeed, within a year, the party whose president had said too much tweeting can lead to quitting. That's Mr. Venkaiah Naidu's one-liner. That party was actually much quicker off the mark. And of course, they were also being advised by public relations consultancies abroad that they were paying handsome fees to, who told them how it was being used effectively in the Western world and so on. And that's how they managed to go into it. We have since caught up. I think that if you look at what we've got there, whether it's the Congress Party's own handle, the Youth Congress's handle, the handles of individual Congress leaders, Ajay Markan, for example, who leads a communication effort, and many other MPs and ministers, we are now out there. But we were slow, relatively slow off the mark. I don't think that right now we are in any way behind. I would even argue that that except for the fact that we don't do systematic abusive trolling and we don't keep an employed army of hundreds of people throughout the country to do nothing but vilify others, apart from that, we are out there in strength, and I've always been available to retweet and amplify the party's message or the message of individual ministers, whether it's Chidambaram's hangout or Mr. Petroda's hangout and so on. Right. I've been able to get them a larger audience by simply retweeting these things, and I consider myself duty-bound as well as somebody happy to do it, to actually help amplify the party's voice.